Hello, friends, and thanks for listening to the Capital City Soccer Show, your independent source for everything Austin FC. Today, we are joined by the lead designer for Austin FC Stadium, Jonathan Emmett. We're also going to talk a little bit about some good and bad MLS expansion news, and we'll give a quick scouting report of Rodney Redes, Austin FC's first signing. So I am joined, as always, by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley. Jeremiah, how's it going?
Hey, Landon, it's going great. And good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I don't know. Depends on when you're listening to it. Everyone, it's evening here. It's Sunday night.
We're missing a game of the MLS's back tournament right now, which I have recording. So if you know anything, don't tell me.
That's right. I did not check it out. And I do not appreciate the moving everything back a half an hour because with the late game starts at 10 here. Wait.
Yeah, it's 7:30 p.m. and then 10 p.m. are the games tonight. This is Sunday night. So, yeah.
So it's going to be 11 o'clock there. So what have you I've appreciated watching a lot of soccer during this tournament, but what are your general impressions about what you've seen?
The first few days were a little bit slow, as to be expected. A lot of these guys haven't played a real game in however many months. And so they were a little bit slow, but it kind of picked up pace and got really exciting there for a while. There was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 goals every game that we were watching, and it was a lot of fun. The end of the group stage, I want to say the last night or two were a little bit boring, and then some of the some of those games weren't so much fun to watch. But I'd say overall it's been a pretty entertaining tournament, and there's been kind of some new names pop up, some young players show up that have done really well. And so I've really enjoyed it so far.
Yeah, and I've found it really entertaining too. And I really like there's some teams that are obviously not good, LA Galaxy and others, but I've really enjoyed the parity. There's been a lot of that, but Cincinnati to make out, there's a couple of Canadian teams that made it further than anybody thought. I feel like it's been it's the best. It's everything MLS, right? It's the best and worst. There've been some amazingly, easy goals that were missed, and some really awkward goalkeeper play and some exciting matches. So it's everything I hope in the tournament.
Yeah, and you've got Orlando is kind of good, and Atlanta is really bad, and so it's out of the norm for MLS, which makes it more MLS than ever, right?
Yeah. Atlanta's bad enough they fired their coach or mutually parted ways, but that never seemed like a really good fit, right? For me, I don't know.
Yeah, it took a very exciting team and made them boring somehow. So yeah, for the good of the league, I want Atlanta to be good. They're a fun team to watch with a great fan base. So I hope they find someone who can make them exciting again.
Well, now that we enter the knockout stage, I know they were publishing the results of the betting odds on every team that was left. And one of the things that was interesting is just how important what side of the bracket you're on is. For example, Columbus has probably been the best team, but they're throughout, but they're not even that high up. And it's just because of where they sit and the other clubs that they have on that side. And so I think it's really interesting to see how that plays out.
The highest, the best odds team to win is Sporting Kansas City. And they've been fine. They've played good at times, but I would agree that Columbus has probably been the best team this tournament, but they're on the same side of the bracket as Orlando, who's been really good, then Seattle and LAFC, who Seattle hasn't looked great all the time in this tournament, but they're Seattle, and we know what they can do, and we know who they are. Also, they could potentially face San Jose, who's been pretty difficult to go up against in this tournament. So yeah, because of that reason, Vegas doesn't have their back. But as far as the best soccer that's being played and just the best looking team, I think Columbus is it. And so we were in a group chat the other day and talking about this, and it's as Austin residents and Austin FC fans, are we allowed to like Columbus?
Yeah, it's a hard question. I love the club. I love how they play. They share the same colors as my high school, which it was this thing I always appreciate. But yeah, they're an exciting team, but it's really hard to separate what they're doing from the whole experience we had. And so I think that's something that we plan to spend a bit more time on next time around, and we can tease that now, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, good. I mean, it's our show.
Yeah.
We can tease whatever they want, whatever we want to tease. So more Columbus talk in 2 weeks. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, but personally, I'm at a point now where I can separate it, and my dislike for like a certain subset of the internet, which involves Columbus fans, and it's not all Columbus fans. Like it's a specific kind of Columbus fan on the internet that I really, really don't like. But the team, like I've always liked watching the team, like the Berhalter days. Like I enjoy that style of soccer. I know some people don't like it and think it like positional play and kind of the possession game is a little bit boring, but I really enjoy it. And they're kind of doing that same thing. And with back in the Berhalter days, it was with Pipa Higuain with just a true number 10, like a real number 10. Like that doesn't really exist. It's not super common in the game anymore. And Pipa Higuain is that player. And he's a little bit older now. He's still doing some damage for DC, but Zelarayan is kind of like the replacement for that. And he's a super exciting player to watch. And so this really structured, disciplined, tactical game going on within just like these moments of brilliance by a player like Zelarayan, I really like watching it. So I can separate it and say like I dislike this thing, but still can really enjoy this soccer and really enjoy this team. So I'm kind of rooting for Columbus right now.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good. Well, it's a U.S. national fan, right? Like if Giassi Zardes somehow develops a first touch in MLS, it carries over to the national team. Like which he seems to have done in this tournament. Like why would you not want that? So he's an exciting player to watch too. So it's been good to see them come together and see what they have done. And they did that. They've had a fair amount of roster turnover too, and really managed to like come out of that better than they were before.
Yeah, one thing with speaking of Giassi Zardes is I found myself watching this tournament thinking like I would be okay if he were the striker for the national team, which is not a thing I've ever thought.
Yeah, the same way. Like I've seen too many of those first touch like YouTube videos, but yeah, he's really turned it up.
All right, so we'll be watching the rest of this tournament with interest, just kind of see how it goes. I mean, this is going to be the knockout round, so it's bound to be exciting, and at least that way that whoever loses is going home. But there's been some news come out about what's going to happen after this tournament and how MLS comes back. And so the plan is right now is for these teams to return to home markets and play in their home markets and kind of do what the European leagues are doing. I mean, Germany was doing first, and then England was doing, where the teams are traveling to their respective markets and playing home and away games, but still without fans. The twist in this is that the nation of Canada is not allowing U.S. citizens to come in without first quarantining for 14 days, and vice versa. So, what is that going to look like?
Yeah, this plan, which I guess is I don't think it's official, right? It's like sort of a tentative plan, but yeah, it seems to be that Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver will just like play each other for a while, and then we'll just trust that everything's okay from the Canadian government after that. Which seems odd, but I mean, maybe we'll get through it. So yeah, the idea is that they'll sort of play in their own pods and play their, I guess, both their home and away matches out, and then about a month down the road they'll be able to reintroduce playing against the American clubs. But I think you said Toronto at least is already making plans for a future where they aren't able to do that, right?
So yeah, that wasn't released in the MLS news about any of this. The MLS news, I think we were texting about this, Jeremiah, and essentially MLS seems to be taking like the United States government position on this. We're like, it's going to be fine. In like 6 weeks, it's all going to be fine. Don't worry about it. But Sam Stachel and Paul Tenorio have written about this and talked about it on their podcast, saying that they have sources from Toronto saying that Toronto is actively exploring the idea of having a home base in the United States to finish out the season. So I know the Toronto Blue Jays are going to play most of their MLB games in the United States to finish out the season. It sounds like Toronto at least is actively planning to do that as well. Uh, they did not have any sources telling them the same thing about the other Canadian teams, but I would imagine either it's if things don't change quickly, like it's either going to be that or don't play the rest of the season, which I can't imagine that would be a very appealing option to them.
Yeah, well, and an extra bit of sort of enthusiasm that may not be warranted. I believe that they've said that if the stadiums of the home clubs allow fans, that there's some tentative plan to actually play matches with fans this year. I remember that athletic article. They said, well, if I don't know any state that will allow it, but if states will allow, Texas might be, right?
Some state's going to allow it, right?
We don't care about anything. Yeah.
We have two teams in Florida and 3 teams in Texas. Somebody's going to allow it.
Somebody's going to go for it. But yeah, that they would come back later this year with fans, if the stadium allowed it, which would be wild. But I guess USL's done that, right? USL's played a lot. I don't know a lot, but played a fair amount of matches in front of fans too.
Yeah, I haven't seen what that's looked like. I'm like a USL game. It's gonna be a smaller draw, and so like it seems like it would be an easier thing to manage. But yeah, we live in the Wild West right now, so I'm not going to say anything's impossible, but I'm also not going to believe anything until I actually see it. So that's 2020 for you. Some other wild news that came out recently regarding MLS was that due to the COVID-19 pandemic and some of the complications that that's brought along, MLS has decided to push back the start dates for 3 of the 4 expansion teams that are set to come online in the next few years. So Charlotte, St. Louis, and Sacramento, but not Austin. I repeat, not Austin.
Not Austin.
Austin is still on schedule to start next year, so 2021. But Charlotte is now Charlotte was set to come online with us in 2021. They are now going to start 2022. And then St. Louis and Sacramento, who were set to come on in the same year, are now still come on the same year, but in 2023. I don't know about you, Jeremiah, but the first thing that I heard or read about any of this was just the headline, which said MLS pushes back inaugural seasons for 3 of 4 expansion teams. And I was like, my heart started pounding and I got so scared and so nervous. And I was like, I don't think we'll be one of those, but I started reading it. It was like, okay, good. We're like in the first paragraph, it said like, Austin's good. Don't worry.
Yeah, I was the same way. Like, I didn't even know to be worried about that until I saw the article. Like it had not crossed my mind that we wouldn't go in 2021 until I saw that headline. And I was like, oh no, oh what? But,
yeah, I've seen some Twitter trolls mention that, like saying like, yo, you're not going to play in 2021 anyway. And I was like, really? Like that just sounds wrong to me. And so Chris Bills, in his most recent soccer notebook in The Statesman, it came out on July 21st. Very good read. I recommend going and finding it. But he talks about that and talks about the idea of bubbles and how we're all living in bubbles right now. And that like within the Austin bubble, that if like the news that Austin FC is on schedule and like set to start next year, to us here in the city who are paying attention, we were like, yeah, of course, like that sounds right. Like everything that we know about it, it seems like, yeah, we're on schedule right now. But he also kind of plays with the idea of like Austin as the villain, like the early days of the Austin concept, like Austin was going to be the villain of MLS and like everyone hates Austin, and kind of played with that idea of like, is that still true even? And kind of just like what people are thinking in their perspective, in their respective bubbles. And so, yeah, like here in Austin, I think what you said is the same as what I felt, Jeremiah, is that like, yeah, it makes sense that like the stadium is half done. The fan base is really excited. We've got coaches, we've got front office staff, we've got a player and are rumored and connected with several other players like before, like ahead of schedule, like before a lot of other expansion teams have been able to do it. So I think it makes complete sense that we're still on track. Like again, it's 2020, who knows what's going to happen, but barring some major catastrophe, I think we're going to be fine. Regarding these other teams, it's a little bit disappointing. Like I imagine the fan bases in those cities are disappointed, but I think it's going to be the best thing for those teams and for the league. Charlotte, who is set to start with us, they have some stuff in place. I mean, they're going to be playing in the NFL stadium that's already there, so they don't have to worry about that part of it. But there's a lot of other things. Like they just announced their name and their logo last week, and so there's a lot of things that they're just a bit behind us, behind Austin on. And so I think the more time they have, the stronger the start they're going to be able to make. And the same for St. Louis and Sacramento. It's disappointing for them to be pushed back, but I think for the good of those teams and for the league, it's the right call.
Yeah, I don't think it's any other way around that. And like you said, they were not in the same position that we were in terms of being prepared. And so, speaking of us having a player,
Wait, one
you
second before we make this transition. Sorry to
okay,
ruin the flow here.
yeah,
The Charlotte FC name and logo. What are your thoughts on it, real quick?
the shark. Well, it's like the most boring, uninspired name ever, but it's also the same one that we have, so I can't really complain about that. But I feel like for Charlotte, like for Austin, I never heard a lot of like interesting rumors, and I feel like some of the other Charlotte, you know, the other things they were looking at or had been registered, like were like sort of this combination of like American sports and soccer, and so I was hoping they would go for something a little more creative. How about you?
I think I'm in the minority, at least of like my Twitter universe that I exist in. I mostly saw people like ragging on Charlotte's. I think the name, whatever. I don't care. Like Charlotte FC, it's we've talked about it on this show. Like I kind of enjoy, especially within soccer, like um, not prescribing what the name or the culture of this team is going to be, and kind of leaving it blank to let the fans fill in. And so Austin FC, like it's not the Austin guitar bats or the whatever, what like it's a generic thing, but I think that can be a positive in that the fans get to decide what those nicknames are, what the kind of the lore that surrounds that is ours to build. And if you give it like a typical American mascot, it kind of takes away from that a little bit. So the name I'm fine with. It's boring, but like in a way that leaves possibilities open. The crest, that was the thing that I saw people ragging on really hard. I again don't have much of a problem with it. I think a lot of people get really caught up in like what it looks like in a JPEG on their computer screen, and if you look at it that way, yeah, it's not super interesting, but it's recognizable. It's gonna look good on a shirt, like when they have jerseys and put it on like that badge on their shirt. I think it's gonna look good, and also it's gonna look good for a long time. Like it's gonna be good forever. So something else that came out, another logo that came out, is this new hockey team, the Seattle Kraken, which my Twitter timeline was also like fawning over, like raving about. And I don't know about you, Jeremiah, but I actually, again, in the minority, I don't like the name and I don't like the logo for Seattle Kraken.
Well, I love the video about the Seattle Kraken and the story. Um, but yeah, I don't know how timeless the logo is. One thing I liked about, I want to go back to Charlotte. What they do is I kind of like the idea of the color scheme that represents a city, regardless of sport. And I think the crest tied in a little bit of that too, right? Like this is just Charlotte, and this is what they are. And the colors of the club are very closely aligned with the colors of the NFL team, which makes sense, right? Because they have a common owner. But I kind of like that when you have sort of your design centered around your city. Baltimore does that pretty well, and Charlotte, and then there's some other place. Kansas City is a good place where there's like all across sports they have this kind of commonality, and I like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
I like that aspect to it, a lot, and I do, like you said, like it's. I think it's like a clean and timeless look, and I think that will stand the test of time.
Yeah. The whole Seattle Kraken thing. I say this thing is like a cut down all the time, but it feels very minor league baseball to me. Like it's a thing that's like really cool, like right now, but I feel like in 10 years they're gonna be the KC Wiz, and it's just gonna be like, oh, what were we thinking? This is crazy. I don't like this anymore. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, but it was a great opening video. I think that's what I loved. It was like the Iceland. You just remember the Iceland national team crest. The video is amazing. I'm still not sure I understand the crest, but it made me very inspired and excited to be an Iceland fan.
Sorry, we can move on to the next point that you were trying to segue to before I cut you off.
I know. Yeah. Oh, so we're talking about players. So I'm going to try this. So you have seen Rodney Redes now play for Guarani
I have.
against Guarania. So I would love you to unpack that because as we talked about in the last show, the opportunity to watch that league is not that common, but you found a way into it. So what do you think?
Yeah, so mentioning how to watch the league, I'm not going to give away my sources, but I will tell all of you listening that if you want to watch Paraguayan soccer, I would recommend you start making friends on Twitter and reach out to some Paraguayos and see if you can get them to share logins with you, because apparently that's the only way you can watch this league in the world is if you are a Paraguayan resident and have a login to Tigo Sport. That being said, the game itself, I had a lot of fun watching it, just like knowing like this is our guy. But the game was a little bit sloppy, but it's somewhat to be expected, having it being the first game back after the whole pandemic break. They were set to start a few weeks ago and they had a bunch of positive tests among several teams. I think a lot of them ended up being false positives, and so they were able to come back quicker than originally expected. But Redis played on the right wing in 4-3-3. He's not. We talked about this a little bit with Roberto Rojas when he was on our show a couple of weeks ago, but he's not like an outright winger. Like he's not the type of winger who's like running down the sideline, get to the touchline, cross the ball in, or like with his heels to the touchline. He's not that type of player. He's gonna be kind of more like I've heard people call them inside wingers. So kind of like what Christian Pulisic or Gio Reyna kind of play for their teams, like where they start on the wing, but really their tendency is to move inside and find the ball, or even whenever the ball's on the opposite side of the field, they'll come to the middle of the field, or they'll kind of like run along the 18-yard box and try to time a run into the box. And so he reminds me in some ways, he's not the same player as this, but a little bit like Jordan Morris, where Jordan Morris started his career as a number 9, like a striker, and then got moved out to the wing because of the other players they had on the team. And Jordan Morris has made that position his. He is a winger now, but still has these tendencies like a forward to kind of move inside and kind of play more in the middle of the field rather on the outside. So Redis plays a little bit like that, where not an out and out winger, but is very comfortable in that part of the pitch. So he'll move inside to find the ball. He'll drop back into midfield to combine with players to kind of to make himself available to keep possession going. But he'll also run and make runs behind. And there's several times where they would kick it long, just like hoping he would run and get it. It wasn't always successful, but it's a thing that they look for in him to be able to stretch the field and kind of open the field up a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, talk about Jordan Morris, and Jordan Morris is obviously like a thick guy, strong guy in the same way, and good at using his body. And I mean, do you see a comparison there in terms of the way he like personally plays?
Yeah, I think one thing they have in common is Redis is really strong on the ball. So once he gets the ball, he's really good at using his frame to kind of keep defenders off of him. And so he's not super dribbly. He's not going to dribble through people, but he can ride a challenge. And if someone's on his back, he'll keep the ball. He's not going to get pushed off the ball really easily. So that's one thing I really liked. I think the most impressive thing he did in this game was just his work rate and how hard he works. He would track back to defend and not just be a body in the way. He actually defended quite well. I looked up the stats. He had 10 interceptions in this game, which is like, I think usually for that position, you'll get 2, 3 maybe in a game. And he had 10, which is crazy. I think part of that is that it was kind of a sloppy game, but also it was a testament to how hard he worked. And so he'll track back, he'll defend. There was one point in the game where he tried to cut out a ball with like a really high kick and got a toe to it, and it still got to the offensive player. And they played it up the sideline. He sprints 40 yards, bodies a guy off the ball, gets the ball and turns and starts the counterattack the other way. And that's, it looks like it's just a thing that he just does all the time. And so that's part of the, when I was watching it, I was like, okay, if Wolf is the same type of coach as Greg Berhalter, I understand why they like this guy, because Berhalter likes his attackers to work super hard and be really good at finding space and really smart with their movement. Redis is all of those things. So as far as like, it's yet to be seen with the attacking skill, just because this was such a sloppy game that the possession was kind of back and forth between the two teams. But as far as the work ethic, the movement within space, and his ability to just run and run and run, I think that's the thing that Wolf is really going to like in this guy.
That's cool to hear from a player, and I maybe that sets a precedent for what else we're going to do. So, is there any other little things you learned about him? Okay, so you write these notes. I have no idea what little coolers means, but I need you to explain that to me.
I wrote it cryptically so that you wouldn't know what it means. So I just have in our notes other things I learned. And so one of them about Rodney Redes is he seems to be their preferred set piece taker when the ball is near the goal. So he actually drew this foul at the top of the box, maybe 3 or 4 yards off the top of the box, and he was the one to take the free kick and put a shot like just over the crossbar. But then there was one out wide from like not quite a corner position, but a bit off of the end line, and he also took that one. So he seems to be, whenever they get a dead ball close to the goal, he's the guy who takes those set pieces. So that was interesting to learn. Another thing, not about Rodney Redes, just about Paraguayan soccer that I enjoyed, is there's a lot of pictures, and then within this game, all of the players, like as they're walking into the stadium, like their little dugout section, they're all carrying like tiny little igloo style coolers, and it, like, I think it's just like so that they can keep like, oh, this is your water bottle and this is your whatever. But it just looked like a bunch of like elementary school kids like having a picnic or like carrying their lunch boxes to school. But it's like all the teams are doing that. I really like that. But another thing I learned in this game is that the guy who was playing right back in this game, his name is Ivan Ramirez, and his nickname is Super, like Super. And so on the back of his jersey, it doesn't say Ramirez, it just says Super on the back of his jersey. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. So I thought that was a fun thing to learn. But like I said, this is an early game. I don't think it's completely fair to judge him, but they're playing another game. We're recording this on a Sunday. They're playing tomorrow night on a Monday. So by the time this comes out, this game will have already happened. I'm going to try to watch that one, and I'll try to watch any of these games that he's playing in, if I have the time to. I thought it was really interesting. So if you guys can find a friend in Paraguay on Twitter, then you maybe can join in and watch these games. But if not, I'll try to give you little updates here and there.
Thanks. Hey, so we had one more bit of rumored player news. I didn't look too much into it other than we were rumored to have a bid rejected for a 26-year-old striker from Argentina. Did you, like, what do you know about him? Or
yeah, I didn't look.
How much is there like into him prior to this? I
don't know. It could be made up. Maybe it's real. But a guy named Jonathan Menendez. He plays for Independiente in Argentina. And so the rumor is that the bid was $650,000, which sounds low, but it was with a 50% sell-on clause. And so I think if that's true, what Austin FC was trying to do is say, like, we're going to give you just a little bit of money now, and it's probably not what this guy is worth, but after we sell him on, you'll keep half of those profits, which would then make it worth your while. So with MLS roster rules, I understand why that would be a smart thing for the MLS team. It's because I think what a lot of people don't realize is that the transfer fee gets tacked onto your salary cap essentially. And so whatever you pay for a player it cuts a chunk out of your salary cap. And so by paying less for him, I think this is right. I think it would take a smaller chunk out of their salary cap, and then they would essentially not get as much money for him on the back end, but wouldn't pay as much for him on the front end. So it's a smart move for the MLS side, but apparently the Argentinian club wanted the money up front. So we'll see if this pans out and if they come back with another bid to get this guy. But yeah, who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, that's the beauty of actually like having a club next season. Is all this insane stuff that as like a Premier League fan or La Liga fan or whatever, you're used to this whole silly season thing. Like we have one in Austin now. Isn't that wonderful?
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with that interview from Jonathan Emmett. We wanted to take a quick minute to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
We also want to remind you to visit CapitalCitySoccer.com, where we recently published an article about Troy Bryant. In the article, Troy breaks down all of the players that have been linked to Austin FC, including Jonathan Menendez, who you just heard us talk about. Once again, check us out at CapitalCitySoccer.com.
Today we're joined by Jonathan Emmett, who's the principal and design director for the architecture and design firm Gensler. Jonathan has worked on many projects you would recognize, the most relevant to our audience being LAFC's Bank of California Stadium. Jonathan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to be joining you tonight.
So just tell us a little bit about your role as the lead designer for the Austin FC Stadium project.
Yeah, sure. So I've been working with the club for pretty much 3 years now since the start in terms of looking at the stadium design. That really goes back all the way to when we were looking at site selection and finding the site for the stadium. I've worked closely with the team, with ownership and the leadership group there on the project since day one. And my responsibilities really cover everything in terms of the design process from start to finish, from the conceptual design and the programming of the project all the way through construction.
So, Jonathan, can you talk a little bit about your background first? So, like, how does one become?
Sure.
Like, you got like the greatest job in the world, Dr. Stadium design architect. How does that happen?
It is the greatest job in the world, for sure. I actually grew up in England, and so I'm a big football fan. Grew up playing, supporting my local team. Interestingly enough, my father was involved in the stadium redevelopment after the Bradford City fire when I was a teenager. So I was introduced to that as a youngster in terms of the opportunity to design stadiums. I've always been an athlete, played sports my whole life, and so being able to bring together those two worlds of design and sports was really a dream come true, and it's all I've done my whole career. I've worked pretty much in every league, NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, but over recent years, I've spent a lot of time working on MLS venues, starting with the renovation of BMO Field a few years back, and then moving on to LAFC and being a part of that process in terms of the stadium and the training facility for them. And so that was an amazing opportunity, and it's been fantastic to be able to leapfrog that and bring that here to Austin as well.
So we want to get into LA in a minute, but I'm a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. And when I was reading your bio today, like you hit a project that's near and dear to my heart. So talk about that.
Yeah, I had the opportunity a few years ago to design the headquarters and practice facility for the Dallas Cowboys in Frisco, Texas, which was a very unique experience. It's an amazing facility, and having the opportunity to work with the Jones family and the Cowboys organization was really an absolutely unique situation, and a real pleasure to work with that organization.
So what are some of the other projects that you've worked on that some of our listeners might be familiar with?
Yeah, a couple of the bigger stadiums I've done. I was heavily involved in Paul Brown Stadium for the Bengals. I then had the opportunity to design Lincoln Financial Field for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm one of the few people out there who both a fan of the Eagles and the Cowboys as a result of those two projects. And then more recently, one of the other projects I just completed was the Chase Center for the Golden State Warriors.
All right, cool. Yeah. So one of like we mentioned in your intro, you also worked on Bank of California Stadium for LAFC. So with your experience as working on that stadium and now immediately afterwards working on the Austin Stadium, what are what are some of the similarities between the processes and the designs that are going on, and then what are some of the things that are going to be different?
Sure. Yeah. So Bank of California was a very inspiring project to be a part of. I mean, it was really all about bringing a new team, a new franchise to the city of LA. And that stadium really redefined the fan experience for the MLS. I mean, it really has really set a new standard for the league. And I think,
Yeah, definitely.
coming into this project for Austin, it was really about capitalizing on that and sort of building off of that experience. Certainly some similarities. It's obviously a new franchise, but in terms of the city, it's a completely different city. Different fan base, different locale, different climate. So a lot of different things have to really be taken into account. One of the things we dealt with in LA was this was one of many sports franchises. So it was really about how do you attract a new franchise fan base, when you already have an MLS team in town, but also, a lot of other teams as well. So Austin was very unique in that respect, insofar as, it being the first professional team, and, really sort of looking at how we could capitalize on the great support for soccer within this community, but bring a whole new experience as a professional franchise to the city. Some clear similarities. Obviously, its primary use is an MLS stadium, very similar size. So, a lot of things that we were able to draw on in terms of our experience in LA, and certainly some of the other benchmark projects around the league that have come online since or are coming online. But I think what was really unique to Austin was Austin has a very unique culture, a very unique vibe to it. I've been traveling out here for like 2 or 3 years. I actually live out here now, and I've really come to love the city and the people. But one thing I picked up on very quickly was that you can't bring a project that would work in LA or New York or Minnesota or Dallas, even for that matter, and just drop it into Austin and expect Austinites to like the experience. So this had to be uniquely Austin in so many respects.
What are some of the things that you maybe this is probably a difficult question to answer for you, but are there any things that like lessons you learned through the LA process that you then applied to the process here in Austin?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, first and foremost is that while this is all revolving around a game day experience, it truly is a game day experience. It's not just the 90 minutes of the game. So, I think that was something we learned some really great lessons from at the bank, and we're able to bring here and apply here, and really make an even bigger deal of for Austin. I think the attractions of the location that we ended up selecting was the fact that we have a lot of space. I mean, we have about a 24-acre site, and so we were really able to create an entire environment for the fans for a pregame and postgame experience around the venue, and not just limit the experience to those 90 minutes.
Yeah, that's really cool. And another thing we've heard a lot about all throughout this process is this idea of fan focused design, particularly at
Mhm.
McCalla. So, can you talk a little bit about what that's like, and sort of any particular elements that you're really proud of that you managed to implement into the design of the stadium so far?
Yeah, I think probably twofold. I mean, first of all, when we talk about fan focused, it's all about that experience of watching the match and bringing the fans together for an intimate experience. So that's where it all starts, and that's when Anthony and Andy and the rest of the leadership came to us and talked to us about, was first and foremost, this has to be an absolutely amazing fan experience for watching football, for watching the team on the field. So everything starts from there, in terms of creating an intimate seating bowl, comfortable environment to watch the game. But then it starts to work out from there, looking at all of the amenities, all of the support facilities, the concessions, food and beverage, the concourse spaces, really making sure that this is an environment that's going to really support that game experience, and quite frankly, not take the fans away from the match any longer than they need to be. So making sure there are plenty of concessions, plenty of restrooms, all within very close proximity to the action. And then even when the fans are up and about on the concourse, that they can still keep touch and hear and see the game and see the action on the field. And then it really moves out from there again to this idea of a game day experience, and looking at how we create pre-game activities outside the gates as well. We're really fortunate with the site to have a series of outdoor spaces, plazas, lawns, open air environments where we can handle a lot of different pregame activities and events sort of leading up to the match.
Yeah, and post game seems to be an important part of it too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you've got this, you want to kind of keep people around and get flow outside of the stadium sort of ongoing and not all at once. Can you talk a little bit about what y'all are doing there?
Sure. I mean, that's really important, getting people in and out. We want to disperse that traffic, whether it's the foot traffic or vehicular traffic. And, that one of the things we can do with that is to try and keep people on site a little bit longer as well. One of the things that we've done to create that in terms of some of the outdoor spaces and environments around the stadium is we actually have a couple of venues within the stadium. The new North Beer Hall, which you may have seen publicized a couple of weeks back, and then our East Club, which are going to stay open after matches and be just great social environments for the fans to hang around and maybe watch other games that are sort of coming online after our game, or just socialize and enjoy food and a drink.
So, Jonathan, one of the things I've read about the stadium is how it has been designed to kind of let air move through to deal with the hot Austin climate. So, can you talk to us a little bit about that design point?
Sure, yeah, it's obviously one of the most critical aspects of the design, and something that from day one we were asked to really address. Obviously, that's been an issue, I think, in Houston and Dallas with the MLS teams there. Really sort of addressing just the heat and the climate issues. So from day one, we started to look at how we could not only site the building, orient the building to really sort of allow for sort of a good climate response. So one of the key features you see in the stadium is the open air corners. The stands and the seats are really sort of set on the corners. The seating bowl is depressed down into the ground so that we can really create these open spaces on the corners. That really are all about creating sort of airflow and breezes through the building. At the top of the seating bowl on the east, you'll see a very large gap between the seats and the roof canopy. And again, that's all about getting that hot air out of the space, which some of the other venues tend to sort of trap heat up at the roof and create a very uncomfortable experience. In addition to that, obviously, just the scale of the roof canopy itself and the orientation and the profile of that was first and foremost about getting as much shade on the fans as possible, not only while they're sitting in their seats, but in terms of these corner plazas as well, where people are going to hang out and socialize. So, thankfully, the other benefits of the roof are going to be providing a lot of intimacy, and then it's also just going to be a huge noise machine for the building as well.
Yeah, we're excited about that. Yeah,
seen some of the renderings of how close that roof on the south end is going to be to the supporters section, just right down on top of it. And that's going to be like a sound cannon over there, it seems like.
It really is. I mean, just the profile, the shape of the roof, and the fact that it's a metal deck. I mean, that's just going to reverberate the sound right off of that roof, which is going to be pretty incredible experience.
I think one of the things is somebody who drives by this place all the time, just like every other fan in the world that has an excuse to check it out in Northwest Austin, is the canopy creates a pretty impressive, view. Like, it's substantial, right? Mm-hmm. If you're on 183 or if you're on Mopac or come Breaker, like, you can really see it. And I don't know from the drawings that I appreciated that. Is that something you expected to see all along, or was that like, or was that like a fortunate benefit of expanding?
No, we certainly expected to have those views, but I'll tell you, even I'm quite surprised about how dominant it is on the skyline. Anthony from day one wanted a roof and a building that would be easily recognizable, wouldn't look like any other stadium in the league, and I think that's really important. Not only for the fan base, but I think on camera as well. That when this venue is seen on camera, around the league, and fans are watching, that they can instantly sort of see a glimpse and recognize where they are. This is Austin's venue.
So, given the kind of the current state of the world, can you talk a little bit about the current state of the project? And is the project where you thought you would be at this point in time? And what are some of the specific challenges that the COVID pandemic has created in terms of progressing on the stadium work?
Well, it's certainly been a challenge, that's for sure. But in general, we're right on schedule, and we've been very, very fortunate to keep on schedule. A lot of that has really been down to the project team. Our general contractors and the subcontractor community has just done an absolutely amazing job of keeping things going, keeping things moving, while at the same time really living by all of the protocols, all of the stringent protocols that are in place to keep everybody safe. So it's been an absolutely amazing job that the contractor community has put together to keep this online. Thankfully, I say everything's on schedule for an opening next spring. Unlike some of the other, sports projects that are out of there, we haven't hit a bump in the road, thankfully. So, some of the big milestones are coming up here. You've probably seen from the stadium footage, the roof canopy is almost complete, which is a huge milestone for the project. Getting that steel, getting the superstructure up and running is a huge milestone. The seating bowl, all the concrete work for the seating bowl is almost complete as well, which is another major milestone that we'll be hitting very quickly. And then we're all really excited within a couple of months to start looking at the idea of seeing some green down there on the field and seeing some grass. That's going to be an amazing day when we see some green on the project.
Would you be able to give us a timeline on that, like when grass is going to be installed?
Well, the grass is actually growing right now off-site.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That's cool.
Is it where is it in Arizona?
Cool. So that's in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yeah.
The grass is being grown. It's a pretty amazing process, and there isn't a specific date or timeline for when the grass goes down. We're doing all the subfield construction right now. That started in the last couple of weeks and progressing really well. But it'll be later this fall that we start to see grass, and a lot of that is dependent on temperature. So, making sure that grass goes down at the exact right time when the temperatures are right and the climate is right is truly a science. And thankfully, with an amazing groundskeeper in Weston Appenfeller, we'll be in great shape.
That's good to hear. I want to go back to a couple specific points. You talked about how Austin loves Austin, and you have to not just move. Right. We talk about this a lot. We're very full of ourselves, and we welcome you, and we're glad you came here. Can you talk about some specific elements y'all have incorporated in the design that sort of touches on Austin?
Sure. Yeah. I think first and foremost, this is just about creating a very casual, relaxed environment that brings people together. And I think that that's just something that we've all picked up on right away, that this is about bringing community together, bringing fans together, bringing a diverse audience together. So, this isn't about exclusivity in the way that a lot of stadiums are about. This is truly about bringing the soccer community together. And, it was really important that we create an environment that allows people to move around the building, see different parts of the building, go meet up with friends, go meet up with other fans, have different experiences. Food and beverage is a huge part of the culture here, as we know, and the expectations are very high. And Austin FC and their partners are doing an amazing job of putting a great program together that's really going to resonate, I think, with the local community and really bring a level of quality and diversity in terms of that F&B experience. I think the other thing that really sort of struck us early on is this indoor-outdoor culture. That even though, obviously the climate, get a lot of hot weather through the season here, but, making sure that we're creating very comfortable outdoor spaces, whether outside the fence line, outside the gate line, or within the venue itself, that people can enjoy, was really, really critical. And I think that was one of the things that we started very early on looking at, was how we bring that park environment that's surrounding the stadium and really bring that into the venue as well, where we're creating that very clear relationship between the indoor spaces and the outdoor spaces.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. I think that is a thing that Austin really likes, is to be outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be able to bring your dog to a soccer match, of course, but just like the epitome of an Austin bar to me is a place that has no indoor seating and all outdoor seating, and you'll see dogs there and just like picnic tables and stuff, and that's what Austin feels like to me. And so I'm glad to hear that's what parts of the stadium at least are going to feel like as well.
Absolutely. We still want to bring that very friendly, relaxed environment to every space in the building, even if it's the most premium spaces.
And can you talk a little bit about the building, like on non-game days? Because I feel like there was a lot of thought into that too. And that's a lot of the Austin vibe also, is not just being a place people go to for 17 or 20 matches a year or whatever, but like a community amenity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the great things again about this site with its location. It really can serve the local community. Again, it's about a 24-acre site, and about 8 acres of that are open space that's going to be open to the public year round, um, which is a really fantastic thing, whether it's just serving local residents or local businesses. But it's also about breaking down the scale of the building as well. Stadiums can be just these just massive fortresses that really are unwelcoming as buildings with environments. And so, breaking down the scale, opening it up where there are views in and out of the stadium, putting it down at a more human scale, and having a lot of these amenity spaces, whether it be the East Club or the retail store, or a couple of the other sort of club spaces that may be able to be used for non-game day events, all open up directly to the outside in these outdoor environments in a very inviting and pedestrian friendly way.
Yeah, so we talked to some people about specific questions they had for you, and we got one very specific one, and that is talk about the video board. Like, what's the display quality in the video board? I don't know. Apparently, people care about like how HD stadium video board is. So if you know anything about it, that's something people want to know. Apparently.
Yeah, I'm sure, because it just went up and it's been publicized. I mean, the board went up very, very quickly, and a little bit earlier than it usually would go up on a stadium project. But needless to say, it's state of the art technology. With the video technology, it improves year by year. So, what was unattainable, 2-3 years ago is just getting better and better. So in terms of the pixel ratio, this is as high a quality board as you'll see in the MLS.
Maybe you're not able to go this specific, but can you tell us why it went in so early? I was surprised to see it going up as well.
Really, that's just a project scheduling that, in terms of getting a lot of the heavy equipment off of the field, so we could start the field construction. That really meant getting some of these elements, like the video boards, in a little bit earlier than we would typically do on a project like this.
Okay.
And again, a lot of that is driven by the fact that we have the roof canopy up already. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. And from what I've seen in the videos and photos that have been posted, all of the cranes are outside of the stadium now, correct?
That's correct. So the only major cranes we have on site now are on the exterior, on the north end, just to install that north canopy, which will be the last piece of the canopy to go in.
Okay, cool.
On the north end, you talked a little bit about the beer hall sort of being the newest announced amenity. But it's not going in 2021, right? So can you talk a little bit about that, and then the potential seat expansion that comes along with it?
So the beer hall will actually come online as part of the stadium project.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Along with the team store and the other amenities in the north building. So any future expansion seating associated with that would not be coming online, obviously, within that first season.
Okay, so I don't read very closely. Sorry. I thought
no, I think there was some of the reporting I saw. It didn't make it entirely clear if it was talking about the seating not going online in 2021 or the beer hall. So that's a really good clarification.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the recent articles that you published like a week or so ago on the Gensler blog was about the future stadium design, and specifically it focused on the post-COVID world. And it was really heavy on technology, which I know is something that y'all originally had talked a lot about putting in the stadium design at McCalla. But I'd love to hear more about the original plans, and then maybe the enhancements you made to that, given where we all are now.
Well, first and foremost, we're actually in a really good position in terms of where we're at in terms of the design and the construction of the stadium. We've had time to react. We've had time to look and learn from what others are doing, with it mostly, in terms of obviously buildings that are already up and running and are sort of now looking to bring fans back to sports. So thankfully, we've had time to really sort of adjust, and much of what we're doing right now with Austin FC and their partners is really starting to look at what alternatives and what viable options we have, as the situation unfolds, quite frankly. I think one of the things that we've been very fortunate with is that when we started the design process in the first place, we were charged by Austin FC to design a very technology-focused, fan-friendly stadium, and also to build in a lot of flexibility for future change and future future needs and uses. So that flexibility that was built in early on has really served as well, and will do as the situation unfolds. But yeah, as we mentioned in a couple of the blog posts, 2 or 3 of the sort of key elements are sort of really sort of looking at the entry sequence, how we sort of deal with screenings, security, ticketing. We're really sort of working very closely with Austin FC and the ticketing partners and their security teams to sort of bring that experience up to date to react to some of the things that we're sort of seeing sort of post COVID. Again, thankfully, we've got a lot of space on the site. We have a great open entry plazas where we can handle a lot of these additional needs. One of the other big areas is obviously in terms of the fan amenities, looking at restrooms, looking at food and beverage concession stands, and how to a great deal we can look at the idea of going as contactless as possible in those areas. So again, thankfully, a lot of the things that we're considering as part of these retrofits for other projects are things that we're already looking at here, and already looking at simply because they improve the fan experience anyway.
All right, we don't want to take up too much of your time, Jonathan, but I was doing some research, just kind of looking into background on you and just projects you have worked on. Mm-hmm. And I found this written in one article in one place and nowhere else. But did you have something to do with building the original Crew Stadium?
I did. Yeah.
I've never heard that before. I'm surprised that's never come up.
Yeah. I worked with Lamar Hunt on that project right at the start of my career. So that was a great experience, not only to obviously be part of building the first soccer specific stadium, but to have that experience of getting to know and work with Lamar Hunt, who, really is the father of the league in so many ways, was just an amazing honor and experience. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So, you helped build the first one, and now hopefully you are building the best one.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, perfect. Thanks so much for joining us today, Jonathan. This has been really great.
My pleasure. Anytime. Thank you.
All right. We want to thank Jonathan Emmett one more time for joining us. On the next episode, we plan on diving into the Columbus Crew saga and what that experience was like for us, and then also how things have changed in the past couple of years. So we will be back in a couple of weeks. Until then, I am Landon Cottam.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.